Hello, everybody. Grant Hunter here with another Product Growth Leaders topic of the week. You know, we've been going through a series of collaboratives, right? How do we collaborate with sales? How do we collaborate with marketing? And we got to one that's, I don't know if it's hit a nerve, but definitely it's a place where I think a lot of our effort is spent as product managers is collaboration with development. So this week's question was, this week we're going to talk about product management collaboration with development. We got a great panel. Paul Hurwitz, Joy McCaffrey, Cory Bryan, Faith Peterson, Shabnam Osman, May Wong, and of course, my partner, Steve Johnson. Steve, it seems like we could probably do a topic on product management and development every week and we'd have plenty of fodder, wouldn't you think?
Well, yeah, I think I think that there are relationship problems between product management and pretty much everybody else. But as you pointed out, I think that the fact that for most product managers, working with development is a very big portion of their job. And I remember when I first introduced a class at Pragmatic, it was called Working with Development. And one of the people in the first class said, well, I'm a developer. I know how to work with development. How do you work with those jerks in product management? So, clearly there's some baggage there.
And we rail on sales. I think there's baggage in a lot of those things, as you said.
Right.
This is, we tend to do that in product management. But I think part of it's also because, sometimes you and I will call it this existential fight, for the soul of the strategic role of product management. I think development has sucked a lot of product management in, which I think makes that even more contentious because there's so many people out there talking about product management as a development role or from a development lens, not from a product or strategic lens. And so I think
well, that we define very clearly that product management is about problems and development is about solutions. And yet when I have that discussion with people, they say, okay, so when I'm writing the specification, how should I write it for development? And I'm like, then the second word of your sentence was wrong. I mean, we start with this place of I've already decided what the feature is. I'm now trying to trick development into building the feature I asked for. So I specify it, or I write a user story like, as a user, I want this feature so I can have this feature I want. Right?
Yeah.
And I totally get it from development's viewpoint. Stop telling me what features you want. Tell me what problems you're trying to solve, because I'm the smart one in this conversation.
Well, I did some work with a client last year where that was the exact.
Hang on, Joy did not react well to that last statement, by the way. Anyway, I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Grant. Go ahead.
No, I worked with a client last year where the VP of products we're having a hard time working with development and systems. Can you read through the requirements? And I'm like, the first thing was it was a page full of specifications. I'm like, this isn't a requirement. This is a specification. And
including the size of the button and the angle of the corner and the hex
not
code.
That client. We did have that client where they posted full SVGA in the requirement, but this was a different one. And he was afraid when we started working on problem stories. I'm like, trust me, it took them about 15 minutes to truly understand the what and the how. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, makes sense. But if you can make that click, it's amazing. So we've been talking way longer than we normally talk. Let's talk about that first question we asked. We asked the question, what is the best way for product management to build strong collaboration with development? And Jason Brett came through I'm used to a Jason answering first. This time it was not the Jason I'm used to. It was Jason Brett. He said there's not a single best way, but I think there are some powerful approaches. And the common thread I see is honestly leading with the heart. In the same way we lean into understanding our customers and users, we lean into understanding the development team's needs and priorities. We serve them better. I thought that was a really good way to look at it. Cory, you built on that, inviting them to apply their brains. I'd love to get your take on, what you were thinking when you read Jason's and then, your response.
Yeah, to reiterate, because I don't think you can say it enough, what Steve said is this is the people who add value. There's lots of things as product people that we do, but they are the ones who actually build the thing that the customers will use. So getting them to understand what the real problem is, telling them a story about the problem, not a user story, but the story the problem is having, and getting them to the point where they're interested in solving that problem. So unleash their already interested minds in, okay, we know how to fix that, or we don't know how to fix that, but here's some things we're going to try. Great, go to it. Be there to answer questions, be there to set context, be there to give feedback on it. But really, I'm looking to get them interested in solving the problem.
And that's what it's about, solving the problem. So engage them, bring their heart, mind, collaborate with what's going on. Matt Sifferlin said so many different ways to do this, but I'll just mention a few. And then he wrote about like 15 pages of stuff. But some of them really came through. And Steve, one of them resonated with stories you tell. Shield development from interrupts so they don't feel like they're getting conflicting priorities. Mm-hmm. You tell a story about when you were brought in to help speed things out. I thought that was a good one. Give them post-release feedback, include them on discovery calls, try to avoid halting work. And many people, Jason Vincelette and Joe Christoph, agreed with that. Joy, you came in and you started with what I thought would be your answer, because typically your answer is one word, right? And you said empathy. And then you went into a thesis, of what you meant by empathy. Let's talk to me about that.
So I am guilty, I readily admit, of being one of those product managers that was frustrated with developers because I didn't know what their day-to-day challenges were. I didn't realize how difficult it was. And Faith, I'm from Chicago, and a couple of years back, I had the opportunity to learn how to code. I went through a dev boot camp, and it's hard. It was really eye-opening for me. And it really, I'm not saying that all product managers should learn how to code, but I do think that there needs to be a better understanding of just really how difficult it is and how challenging, and the burnout and the pressures that they have. And so I'm very sensitive now to the topic. Anytime I see somebody roll their eyes about, those developers, I think, you have no idea the challenges that they face and how difficult it is.
One of my rules of management is nothing seems hard to people who don't have to do it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how many times have you heard that? A product manager saying, "Oh, it's just code," or a sales guy saying, "It doesn't look that hard to me." And you're like, "Well, your job doesn't look that hard to me." Nobody's job looks hard from the outside. You get inside, and it's pretty wild. And this isn't really programming, but I'm the webmaster of multiple websites, and I can't tell you the number of times people say, "Hey, would you add this button to the homepage?" And I'm like, "Well, what does the button do? What is it for? What problem are you trying to solve?" And they're like, "Just add the damn button." And so just to be, an ass, I will, I'll make a huge button that says, "I don't know what this does," or something like that. And in this one particular case, what the person wanted was not even on the homepage. They wanted it on an entirely different page, but he didn't know what a homepage was. He thought every web page was a homepage. And, just trying to discern from a statement of "do me this thing," trying to figure out what the hell you're talking about. And then, to your point, then how do I do it in a way that is easily maintained going forward? Not just a hack, but, do it correctly. So I'm with you. I have big empathy for developers.
Well, and it's the whole concept of walk a day in their shoes, right? To really understand what they're going through, that type of stuff. Shabnam, you have your hand up, but I was also about to go to you. Talked about amazing answers. Two things stand out for you. Do you want to talk about your answer, or do you have something on the empathy stuff of Joy?
Yeah, I think so. Just on this empathy thing, it's probably, it's related to one of my points that I made around developers are people too. But Joy's point about empathy, That's why I think empathy is such a one of the key characteristics of a product manager. Right? So much of your role is empathy, like someone said, yes, for the customer, but also for all of these specialists that you work with. And it's been similar. I've been reading through like all the historic discussions, also like collaboration with marketing and now collaboration with development. Like the key thing is coming through is like we don't know, like like there's some sort of blind faith that needs to happen, some empathy for people doing work that you don't understand. Like it feels like this is like one of the top 2 things I'd look for whenever I'm hiring a product manager.
I agree. I completely and totally agree. The thing that interests me is that I don't think the word empathy came up in the past 2 weeks when we were talking about collaborating with sales or collaborating with marketing. And, you know, Shabnam, you make a great point that as product management, we're collaborating with all these different parts and we have to have empathy for them and understand what their needs are. I'm pretty sure May talked about needing to know what, for sales or marketing, needing to know what they need, and so we can solve their problems for them. But I think this idea of empathy for everybody to understand it, it goes back to conversations we've had in this column in the past years. I remember Jason Vincelette talking about you always start with your product management hat on to understand their problems and pains and how you can help them. But to the beginning of this, I think it's true that we have this great responsibility to understand these key stakeholders we have. Cory Bryan just put in the chat.
I'm kind of joking and I'm kind of not joking.
Can you? No, I laughed with a sort of side laugh. What he said was, can you have empathy in an abusive relationship? And I actually think you can. I believe but that means you've accepted, right, your situation in it, and you can have empathy for the person, how that person is in the place they are, right? You feel for them to be the way they are. It goes to forgiveness, right? If I can learn to forgive somebody, then I can have empathy for somebody who's still maybe in an abusive relationship. And I guess if I've hit that, is it abusive to me anymore, even if it seems one way abusive? And now we're going way off track.
Sorry.
But no, that's okay. It was a good question. And you know, I think these are things we need to think about, because in all of these stakeholder relationships, we all have examples of abusive relationships with where people were abusive to product management, right? And I think it's, you know, something we need to think about. But, you know, being willing to forgive and to work and to figure it out and understand, you know, Covey said, right, only you can control how you feel, right? And I think we need to level set with that. Steve,
or you leave the marriage.
Yeah, or you leave the marriage.
You know, he beats me, but I love him, so lasts only so long, and now it's time to burn the bed and get out of there.
Yeah, and exactly. And that's the same thing we'll say, that if people are using the hippo, right, to make decisions, you know, that's a cultural thing. You need to learn to get out of it. But thank you for that nice derail, Cory. Faith, you said you've got a lot of view on it. You actually went out and talked to people, right, about the question, or was that sort of these conversations you've had over the years?
Yeah, imagine that, talking to the people.
Well, no, what I wanted to know was, I mean, if you took this to the next level and took our question on Monday and went out and talked to your development people to get their take, I'm like, now that's taking this to a new level of expectation that I'm going to start holding people to, right? It's not just your answer. You actually went and talked to the people who are talking about it. So that first question I have is, what did you actually talk to people, or is this from your experience over the years talking to developers about this question?
No, I didn't just randomly talk to developers. I reached out to a couple developers that I felt like I had really good working relationships with, because I thought they might be a good source of information about what was it that worked so well. And you know, and then I quoted those 2 quotes there, their responses.
Yep.
But the theme from both of them was the idea of being true partners. And, yep, you know, over the past week or so, I've been kind of having this idea about anti-patterns stuck in my head somehow. And it seems like sometimes there are product I've seen organizations who act as though the relationship between the product manager or and the dev team should be like, like a customer placing an order, or, worse yet, that the product manager is somehow the overseer of the developers. And
well, that wouldn't be collaboration, would it?
Not exactly.
No,
but I have seen it. We've probably all seen it. And where, I've actually had people say to me, well, if the developers don't get things done on time, you should push them harder. Like, I'm pretty sure that's not exactly my job. So, and even if it were, I don't think I could force that thing to happen any faster than it's happening. So
if anything, your job is to focus on, put less in work. There was a great thread on work in progress and infinite backlogs on Twitter today. And I think too often we put too much in work in progress and work in process, and it causes more of that stress. And I responded that I love the idea of an infinite idea list of things we could do, but product strategy's job is to gate that,
prioritize.
Right? Prioritize that and only put through the things that we have the bandwidth to work on and to deliver that. So, I think I see a lot of this as being that way we can collaborate. And as you said, and you said this in your post, prioritize appropriately.
Right. And I think that's one thing that has really been a part of the partnerships that I've, I guess, been a member of, is that, I work with we have an actual conversation. I bring them the problem and then say, okay, I have some ideas about how to solve it. What ideas do you have? They often have other suggestions, or just because they know what's feasible or fast, and they ask great questions, and that helps me think better about both the problem space and the solution space. So going into it without I can't say I go into it without preconceived ideas, but it's been really great when I've been able to have that relationship of trust where they want to understand the problem, and then we can work together to figure out what's the solution. And then I think in this particular case, in fact, I think one of the guys really mentioned, touched on this, was prioritization. I turn it back around to the business, and I feel like it's an important responsibility to prioritize effectively for dev, so that they're creating the elements that are of highest value first. And actually, they get that in a way that people on the business side don't. So I'll turn that conversation around to business and go, okay, let's prioritize the remaining work so that we get the most important things done sooner. And they're like, what? No, we need it all.
Well, actually, it's interesting.
So devs definitely don't like that don't appreciate that very much. And which was to the last point one of them made, Jeff was like, being expected to make estimates, like predict dates that they are going to be tied to, was like number one on the pet peeve list, because it's just not possible. And it's frustrating for them when people don't understand that.
Completely and totally. And this is where Steve always says, you don't ask the sales guy, what day of the month is that deal going to close? Right? Why should we ask to that level of specificity from development?
Right.
Let's get to the two people in the panel who had not answered this question. And I'm going to start with May Wong. May, you didn't answer.
I did not. There were so many good answers. And I said, you know what, I'm going to read, I'm going to listen.
You played Calvin and you hearted them, right?
I didn't. It was really more just, I got so distracted by thinking about the things. I forgot to engage. So I'm sorry for the poor engagement.
But now you can engage.
Now I can engage. Answer. I think that, like, just from a like kind of a further distant perspective, I mean, like I do product ops. It's a little bit difficult for you, like it's a little different from, I guess, the day-to-day interactions with dev. But when big things are happening, we want to talk about, like, how do we sync up our onboarding, but really to think about the wider scale of things in terms of, like, how do we systemically allow, like, create spaces for development to learn, because a lot of the times, like when you talk about development in the lens of product, it's like, how much dev time do we have to build this? Like, what is our the word eludes me, the time it takes to build something, what how long does it take to do this and that, and like what are timelines for to deliver. But really, like, we need to build in and bake in how we learn. And oftentimes, like going to Teresa Torres's continuous learning habits, a lot of the continuous discovery habits, a lot of the things that she talks about is like, we generally associate primarily with product and design. So like a lot of the things that we're building, as an organization where I work now, is to think about like, how do we build in regular learning events where we do invite development, and we do say like, learning isn't optional. And we built that culture of making sure that it's learning for everyone, including engineering and data.
No, still getting back to collaboration, right? How do we bring people together? How we've talked about this earlier, how do we bring them upstream? And we're going, so I totally get that. Paul Hurwitz.
So first of all, I don't remember who said it before, but that idea of shielding the engineering team from the chaff of the rest of the organization, I think is key. I've been in a couple of organizations where I was the first product manager in the company. So the engineering team was really used to everybody just coming straight to them for whatever they needed. So to really help them work on priorities, it was key. A key part of our collaboration was everybody came to me now instead of directly to the engineering team. But if you're gonna do that, then everybody's heard me say this mantra before, but everybody has to share the same understanding of what we're doing as a team. Jeff Patton drills that into you all the time. And it's a line that I use all the time. Make sure that if you are going to be that point person, that people are going to come to you instead of the engineering team, make sure the engineering team understands the big picture. Not just what they're going to be working on for the next 2 weeks, but make sure that they understand why we're doing this, how it fits into the overall business objectives that the company is going for, and really help them understand who it is that they're doing it for, and how it's going to be used. I think I always love the idea of bringing an engineer onto phone calls with users or customers on an ongoing basis, not the same one every time. Let it be different people so that they can really hear from directly from the users and the customers. So to me, it's all about communications and making sure that everybody's on the same page of what and why we're doing.
That's a great, I love that. And especially bring them, you talk about the engineers on the call. When I was getting my MBA, we had a visiting professor who was an executive at IBM who actually ran the AS400 division for a while. And back then the AS400 division was like a major important business. And they were having major quality issues. And he was asked to take it over, and he took it over. And he said, I don't want anybody from corporate to question any of my things. And the first thing he did is he brought the engineers out to the customers so for them to learn it. And within a year, they won a Malcolm Baldrige Award. And so getting those engineers upstream is an amazingly important thing. Steve actually put his hand up. I don't think that's ever happened in 2 years of doing this.
Well, I just wanted to let you finish your sentence and let you know that I was ready to chime in. But I want to agree with Paul and tell it in kind of a story form. My second job as a product manager, I was the first product manager ever hired in the company, and I had encountered exactly the scenario Paul was talking about. And so I went to the developers and I said, so I want to do well here. How can I help? And they said, well, for one thing, we don't seem to have a strategy. And if we do, it changes every week. And as he's telling me this, the VP of development comes in and says, guys, stop what you're doing. I'm getting new requirements. So they had this enormous amount of work in, WIP, but none of it was finished. And the president hired me, and he said, when the president hired me, he said, our development team is broken. You need, can you fix that? And I said, I think I can. And so a week after I got there, I sat down with the president and I said, I found the problem. It's you. You need to shut the hell up for 90 days. You have ideas every week and it takes us a month to, deliver on them. So we never finish anything. And as part of that whole process, I also found salespeople coming in and asking for a feature for their favorite customer or to close a deal. And the developers were at a loss. They're like, well, sales is where the money comes from. I guess I should be a good, company citizen here. And I'm like, no, you shouldn't. So I ended up locking, it was nice the way the business was organized. I ended up locking all non-development personnel out of the dev lab. And it was the funniest thing. The sales guy came in and said, hey, Steve, is there a problem? I can't get into the dev lab anymore. And I said, there is no reason on God's green earth that you should ever talk to a developer unless you're handing him a beer. And he's like, oh, but I like to go hang with them. And I'm like, yeah, that's what the beer is for. There's no business reason for you to talk to a salesperson. If you've got an idea, come to me. And then one more quick one. I said the same thing to developers. If somebody comes to you, say, wow, that is a great idea. We should totally add a USB port to our mainframe computer. You should go talk to Steve. Maybe he'll put it on the list. But don't accept any work from anybody unless we've gone through our process, which is, readying the story before you start working on it. So anyway, rant. Oh shoot, and I didn't turn on my rant button. So
you did not.
I apologize, but anyway,
I will just say that
team,
beer and pizza go a long way towards good collaboration with the dev team.
Good point.
Yes, they do. That's social stuff. Shabnam, you have something?
Yeah. So it's awesome to say for 90 days, like let's freeze the backlog or let's freeze the roadmap. But in reality, that's depending on the stage of the company and the size and the relationship of like founders with developers before you jump in, it's really, really tough. What I found interesting in different companies is figuring out what that time is. What's the smallest time that people are comfortable not changing their minds, right? And actually, like in one of the most recent teams, it was 1 week. Like that's it. Like the team was getting so much of it. Okay, surely you cannot change your mind for a week. Let's just get to stable weekly sprints and we do planning, we can change your mind. And that was like a technique to try and shield the devs. And then over time, you can like stretch it out to 2 weeks or something that's more comfortable.
It's almost like a growing kid who can't focus for more than a minute on something, and then they get a little older and they can focus a little longer. And so that's part of the scaling you're seeing at your company.
Yeah. 90 days, like that's impossible, right? Like a growing company.
We can do our baby steps. What about Bob? And you work on it, getting that longer and longer. So let's go to the poll. On Wednesday, we put the poll in there and we said, where can product management get the most value from collaborating with development? May called me on this. Every one of these should be collaborating. I know everyone is collaborating, but I was trying to not use the word collaborating to define them because it was where should we focus? And to all of I chose other because of it's all of the above. You're in a company where there is a situation and none of these things are happening. Which is the first one you would do? Right? That's what we're trying to get to. Yes, we should be doing all of these. Graham Rose said this is like asking which body part is the most important. The question was, where can product management get the most value from collaborating with development? The options were early understanding of product feasibility, support and product discovery, helping build the technical understanding of the team, fleshing out problem stories, including acceptance criteria, and our catch-all other it depends. And this is maybe the flattest distribution curve we've ever had. We've got 26% for early in understanding product feasibility, 26% for support and product discovery, 26% for other it depends, and 21% for fleshing out problem stories. So the quick question is, anybody in the past hour voted for fleshing out product stories and made this a perfect 25, 25, 25, 25? No, it hasn't happened. I was hoping that might be the case. I voted for early understanding of project feasibility, and it's partly because I had a client last year who we were working on stuff. I had them, they were working with design. They had designs. They were testing designs with users, actually doing A/B testing with designs with users. And then they handed everything off to development. Development said, oh God, this is going to take a year to build and like cost $1 million. And they had no idea it was going to be that hard. I'm like, then why did we start down the design route? Right. And so I've got some pain currently. My other choice was, it was between that and the fleshing out the problem stories. I think those were two places we went. Steve, did you vote? You're on mute. Your mute me button's not working.
I didn't. I was looking at your screen instead of my little mute me button. But anyway, no, I didn't. And I kind of ended up in a, I like all of these. But if you want, I can vote for the last one so you've got an even score there.
So we're at 25%. And that actually, you were the one who named that one. So that would make sense for.
That would be, yes. So yeah, flesh out those, collaborate with development in defining the stories. Instead of writing the stories. Well, you know, I've had so many experiences over the years where you write a story and they say, well, you need to be more detailed. And so you write some more, and, you know, and before you know it, you're writing a spec. And I think most people miss a real opportunity to collaborate, to leverage the wisdom of the room. And we tend to overwrite. And one of the lines that I'm kind of famous for is friends build products, enemies build documents. If you have a discussion about the problem, you don't need a 16-page document about it. And if you look at what's his name, whose name escapes me, the 3 C's of a card, the card or the JIRA ticket is the least relevant part. The card is an invitation to a conversation. Have a discussion and flesh that out together. And then the 3rd C is confirmation, which you write with your dev team so that everybody knows what success looks like.
Awesome. Cory, you said you voted other, but then you were going through feasibility and some other things, and you had a lot of people, a little conversation you got going around there. Where's your head on this?
So I liked something about that first answer, which was early understanding of product feasibility. Product feasibility is not as important as shared understanding to me. And that's why I said other. So I'd much rather have the team, the developers understand what problem we're trying to solve. And everybody understands that at the point where they could discuss it with each other to then decide, okay, does it make sense to build this, or how do we do it technically, or what's the acceptance criteria? Those things are nice to have. I like those because of the way you ask these questions, which is the most or the best or the number one or whatever you want to say. There are hierarchical problems to solve. That hierarchical problem for me is, does everybody have a shared understanding? Does everybody think about the problem in the same way, or at least understand the context around that problem? And then you can get on all the other stuff.
So in with the way Steve was just talking about the fleshing out the problem stories, it almost sounds like that might, you know, if we word that the right way, that could have been your vote.
It could have been, yeah.
All right. Awesome. Joy, how did you vote?
I did not vote.
Okay. What would you're now becoming like an important vote here in the grand scheme of things.
So at my current company, we are Safe Agile, which I am now certified in, by the way. And I see Cory making that face. And, you know, I do want to just apologize because on a previous call, I feel like I made a derogatory comment about Safe, and I hope no one in my company sees that video. I'll just be upfront about that. So in Safe Agile, we have very, very, very specific roles and responsibilities. And so at this first company, or at this company, my response would be fleshing out stories.
Okay. But outside of this company,
All of the above.
always with that.
I want to jump back in here and say something nice to Joy. I think that SAFE has a lot of good methods. And I think that Dean Leffingwell, who created SAFE, is brilliant and a pioneer in the world of development. There is a battle going on as to whether the A in SAFE, really should be agile. But one of the things that Paul said at the beginning is one of the first steps that SAFE advocates in release planning is having a product manager or a business leader tell us what the hell we're doing here. What's going on in the business, what's going on with the product, what's going on in the market. And so there are a lot of things that are in SAFE that are really healthy practice, as opposed to screw it, let's just all start programming some shit, which seems to be in many implementations of Scrum is just let's code some stuff.
And so now, based on this conversation, I apologize, Steve. I hope nobody from my company sees this video based on Steve's comment about the A not being agile. I'll just throw that out there.
Was not saying that. I was saying there is a lot of discussion in the industry about whether the means agile.
Okay.
May, outside of you commented on the word support, help, and lacking the imply of ownership. What did you vote for?
So again, this is a difficult choice, but I do not vote other. So I think that what I did was I stripped out the word help and support, because I feel like in a slightly more ideal situation, all of these things are a part of development's actual job, right? We do have this expectation of them to write the problem story. Oh, no, sorry. To write the solution, create the solution and the acceptance criteria. They do need to analyze and say, is this feasible? But I think the end game with a really good product development team and a really good pod working together, whatever word that you want to use with them, is that problem discovery piece where they're actively involved in understanding the problem itself so they can come up with better solutions. So I voted for product discovery.
Yep. Okay, awesome. Shabnam, how did you vote?
I didn't feel strongly about any of them. I agree with Cory that it's the foundation. The most important is the shared understanding.
Okay.
And all of these ones could fit into that, but actually, number one, ensure that the team has a shared understanding of the problem, so that you don't need to keep on selling it to them and being the driver for the deadlines and the delivery. We're all in this together. We all care about the outcome, not the output, and then everything else should fall into place.
No, that's great. I love it. Paul.
I didn't vote, but I would have voted other and gone along with Cory with what I said before about sharing the same understanding and really understanding the big picture.
Somehow I think Cory may have won this vote. Cory may be the winning poll.
I mean, it's ideas, right? Which ideas resonate, which ideas don't. So
I need to get your help writing these things. Faith, you chose all of the above as a proxy for all the above. If you're going to choose one, because we need this vote to figure out, what's winning, what's your vote? And you can just say Cory is an option. I'm going to go with Cory, or any of the four that I had proposed. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry, I had to. My boss
No worries.
Questions in Teams, so I had to step away for a minute. So, and I can no longer read the sections.
So it's
choices. Let me
Early
see.
understanding of product feasibility, support and product discovery, helping build the technical understanding of the team, fleshing out problem stories, including acceptance criteria, or Cory.
or Cory.
The shared understanding, make sure we're all on the same page.
I find that I've been agreeing with Cory kind of a lot, so I don't think that could be the wrong answer.
All right, so Cory
Okay.
wins this round.
Somebody has to disagree with me. I mean, there has to be somebody who says I'm wrong. Please.
Cory, we do that.
Video call.
We do that often, right? Just in this case, you happen to have a really good point, and it was sort of a foundational of, as a couple people have said. I think Shabnam said it most recently. Your view was sort of a underlying of all of these. It's all about a shared. You're giving us the macro level, right? The super level of it, and so I appreciate that. And for the first time ever on a topic of the week, I'm gladly not winning and letting Cory win. And not just another vote winning, it's a person winning, which has never happened before. So just take that victory and run with it, okay?
Yeah, you definitely should. The world is full of people who are just waiting to knock you down. So just put this one in the win column. So put the plaque on the wall and enjoy it for a minute.
Yeah,
I'll hang it right there.
Right there. I will draft something up in PowerPoint and send it to you, Cory, okay? Cory won the poll of the week for this topic. Let's get into our questions. And I mean, we may only have time for one question because this conversation has been very vibrant. Where is the hardest product management? Where is it hardest for product management to collaborate with development? And there was some rumbling in the chat earlier in there about bugs. And I want to sort of throw out there this idea of, are bugs one of the hardest places for product management and development to collaborate?
So I brought this up, so I'm gonna elaborate on this a little bit. I think that when it comes to bugs, there's often a question of ownership, right? Because it's not really strategic. It does affect the problem space. Sometimes they're big enough that you do need to do a lot of work, so you do need to reprioritize. But for small things, day-to-day things, it does impact your cadence and how much time you can put into the future forward-looking items. So overall, and then also if it's a little more complicated to try to understand what the source of the issue is, then you need dev time to go and look into it and like do some research and, you know, appease the client on the other side who's screaming because their production system is down. So how do you deal with this?
Is it a development product management thing? Is it a customer support, customer success product management thing? Is it a philosophy in the organization thing? I remember reading somebody yesterday talking about, if you live in a constant state of shipping bugs, that's the culture you've decided to be in. Steve, I'd love to get your take on this.
Well, I want to replace the carpet in my office, but the roof leaks. So it doesn't do me any good to replace the carpet until I fix the leaky roof. And software is like a house. It has to be maintained. And nobody in sales likes it, and nobody in marketing likes it, and nobody in executive ranks likes it. But we have this thing called technical debt, and not even technical debt, but just simply maintenance. Things get old, operating systems change, new browsers come along. And I would argue that some percentage, and perhaps a large percentage, of your dev allocation should go to maintenance.
Including bugs.
In which I would include bugs. Some of the bugs are big and the customer's down. Guess what? It's raining and the roof is leaking. I don't care what you think your job is in this family. Everybody grab a bucket because we're going to have to, deal with this leak, right? Likewise, when there's a system one outage or a severity outage, then guess what? All hands on deck, new features be damned. But if you live that way every day, at some point you have to say, we need to get somebody to actually repair this roof and not just go up there with a tarp and 4 bricks,
Yeah.
right? So I think the metaphor holds. So yes, a percentage of our resources should be allocated to maintaining the thing that we have built. And I find that one of the biggest challenges for us all is that we allocate 100% of our roadmap resources. We allocate 100% of our resources to the roadmap and then expect to use the other 100% of our resources for these other things. So the reality is a release should have some things for buyers and some things for users and some things for maintenance.
Yep. I totally get that. I suppose. Does that help your thoughts on bugs, May?
Yeah, Faith actually put something in the chat that said they have a separate team for dealing with bugs. And I have heard a counter argument to that, which is that if there is a separate team dealing with bugs, then there is no ownership of shipping quality because you don't feel the implications of the quality that you ship.
Yeah.
So I don't know if
there's also you guys aren't the A team.
Yeah.
I work on new stuff. I don't bother with maintenance. I let the little people do that.
Our situation's maybe just a little bit unique in that we have, we don't really have in-house developers. We kind of only have an offshore team, and they're the lead of that team is also involved with the tier 3 escalations. Okay. And so, he kind of has latitude to move developers back and forth between the 2 streams, I guess, if you want streams of work.
Just to balance what the needs are right now.
To an extent, well, not like day by day or hour by hour, but maybe like sprint by sprint, he could swap people out or something. Yeah. So also, since he's involved in both, he does have a stake in keeping the one team delivering quality, because otherwise the other half of his own team is going to be picking up the pieces. We also divide the maintenance work a little bit, so that team that does tier 3 stuff, when they're not fielding problems escalated from support, they also have a mission to improve the reduce the tech debt, improve stability in our system. So there's kind of a whole backlog of items that are not really customer or user facing, but still do have impact, require engineering resources. So they are doing some of the paying down tech debt, where it doesn't necessarily change functionality of the system, but makes it more reliable and stuff like that.
We could do a whole week on bugs and tech debt probably. I want to get back to the question we have here. Where is it hardest for product management to collaborate with development and get past the bugs? And I'm going to go to Shabnam. Shabnam, where do you think it's hardest for product management to collaborate with development? Obviously outside of bugs and tech debt.
Probably agreeing on deadlines or estimations of work.
Deadlines and estimation. I think that makes a ton of sense. Joy, what do you think?
Well, in a safe, agile environment, which I am in,
you added the extra agile there just in case, right?
Safe, agile. I work very closely with product owners, and the product owners work with the Scrum Masters and the development teams. When I have had experience working directly with development, it would be estimates, absolutely, and not understanding what was involved on their end and why it was taking long or why the deadlines were being extended.
That actually, part of that goes back to Cory's poll with understanding. The better understanding you have, the better you can probably do with estimates. Paul.
I'm going to go +1 on Shabnam's answer.
All right. Estimation and delivery dates and that type of stuff. Cory. Yep. Shabnam may be winning the first question. We may have a showdown in the lightning round between Shabnam and Cory for the week. I don't know.
I'm going to say that I just got done reading Atomic Habits again, so I love the 1% mentality. What's the one, the smallest bit of functionality that we can work on and deliver to add value to the customer? Several times I get into situations where teams and engineers want to deliver 100%, the whole thing before they deliver anything. No, what's the smallest part you could deliver? What's a day change you could make? What's a week change? What's a month change? Whatever it is, but slowly and specifically slice down what you're building, release that, get some feedback on it. A lot of developers can't think like that.
Yeah, I love that. Quickly, Steve, May, and we're going to do this lightning round with just because I want to get your take on this before we go to the lightning round. May, Steve, and Faith. We'll start with May. Are you going to +1 Shabnam? You're going to give something else?
I think it's just the day to day. You know, we're so tightly wound together that everything that impacts us impacts them as well. So I feel like it's just the day to day building that and maintaining that relationship. I think.
I love that. Faith. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. I really don't have a short answer to this one. I don't find it difficult to collaborate with development.
Huh?
All of the challenges that there are, I find it way more easy to work through those with developers than any of the things I have to work through with sales or marketing or other stakeholders in the business.
Hey,
So
your short answer is, hey, I don't have a hard time with them because I've got a good relationship with them. That's awesome. Steve, any quick thoughts on this before we move to the lightning round?
Yeah, I'll make a quick one. Often we treat developers like factory workers. And sometimes developers ask to be factory workers. In their frustration of dealing with that mindset, they say, you know what, fine, screw it. Tell me exactly what you want and I'll build exactly what you want, even if it's wrong, which is how my friend got that button that was the size of an entire web page. So so I guess the short answer I was trying to get to was it's a two-way street. You know, if you treat them like factory workers, they'll act like factory workers. If you treat them like creatives, then they'll act creative.
I love that. That's awesome. So now we're moving into the lightning round. As a product leader, what is your advice to a new product manager on collaborating with development? And I'm gonna kick it off in the showdown of the lightning round, where Cory goes first, Shabnam goes second, to hopefully potentially decide the week. Cory, as a product leader, what is your advice to a new product manager on collaborating with development? Short answer, one word, quick phrase.
Tell better stories.
Tell better stories. All right. Shabnam.
That was a good one. Give them customer exposure.
Give them customer exposure. Awesome. Paul.
Share the same understanding.
So you just came back in the poll and said Cory.
Basically, but he didn't say exactly the same thing now. So I'm going back to my catchphrase.
Awesome. Faith.
I'm going to go with something Joy said earlier, and I'm going to say number one, learn to code, take a programming class.
Oh, I love that idea. Which helps with something else Joy said earlier. Joy.
Empathy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sit with them for a day.
I love it. May Wong.
Talk to each of them one-on-one and get to know them as human beings. Especially the people you'll be working with like all the time.
I love that. Steve Johnson.
Bring them problems to solve.
Okay. I love all of those answers. Tell better stories, get them customer exposure, shared understanding, learn to code, sit with them, talk to them one-to-one to get to know them, bring them problems to solve. And I'm gonna come back with some stuff we talked about earlier, is help them understand why we chose to do this, right? How this unpacks the business and what we do. If we can show them the why for our business and the why for the customer, I think we're hitting all of those. So guys, As always, what an amazing conversation, both throughout the week in the community, but on this call today. And I want to thank each and every one of you, Shabnam, Paul, Faith, May, Joy, Cory, and of course my partner Steve Johnson. We do this every week. On Monday, the question goes in. On Wednesday, we have the poll, and on Fridays, we have these amazing calls where, yes, at times they're a little group therapy, and maybe we go off the rails sometimes, but they're always fun. I always learn and change my opinions and thoughts on things. And we do it every week, and we want you to join us. So everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you next week in the community. Take care.